Good morning, everyone. Pardon me. My name is Bruce Pinkleton, and I'm Dean of the Murrow College of Communication at Washington State University. Welcome to our Fireside Chat. We have an exciting event planned today. Thank you for joining us. I'm with NBC's Lester Holt, the recipient of Murrow College's 2021 Lifetime Achievement Award for Excellence in Broadcast Journalism. Lester, thanks for joining us today.
Here.
Lester has kindly agreed to answer students' questions about his career and work as a journalist. And also joining us this morning is WSU's 11th president, Kirk Schultz. President Schultz is capably directing WSU's efforts to become a top 25 public research institution. Good morning and welcome, Kirk. Thank you for joining us today.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Bruce, for the invitation.
Terrific. Lester, we know your time is limited this morning, so we're going to get right into students' questions. We're going to start this morning with Albert James. Albert is a junior student here at Washington State University studying broadcast news. Good morning, Albert. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
Super. Please go ahead and ask Lester your question when you're ready.
All right. Well, Mr. Holt, first, thank you so much for being here with us today and taking our questions.
Of course.
My first question for you is, what do you think is the biggest challenge journalists face today?
I think it's reminding folks of what our role in society is and how important it is that we do what we do, and also try to separate ourselves from other things that people may see. So to really focus in on why we need a free and independent press, and to remind folks of the stories that we have reported that have affected change, that have opened people's eyes to things happening around them. As I noted in my remarks yesterday, we've taken some hits. I think the other challenge, though, is for us to also look at ourselves, look inwardly sometimes. Try to understand some of the criticism, how we can do a better job at communicating our function, how we do our work, be a bit more transparent in our work. One of the things we do on a daily basis, I completed a script 15, 20 minutes ago for tonight's broadcast. But right now is in the hands of our standards people who will look at it and make sure that it complies with all of our standards and we say things the way we mean to say. And I sometimes wish that our audiences could have a look at that process and understand how much care we go through in what we report, and not just at my organization, but others. So it's really kind of establishing that trust through establishing who we are, what we represent, and why we're important to society.
And to follow up on that, what can we as student journalists and as media consumers do to prepare for or alleviate those challenges?
I think it's understanding the source that you're getting your news from. As I noted, there's a lot of information flying at us from a lot of different places. Some from organizations that you know, like mine. Others, ones you may not know, and that doesn't mean they're necessarily dealing in false information. But it is important that you understand what you're reading. The difference between reading an article from The Onion versus the New York Times. That's obviously an extreme example, but it is incumbent upon viewers, consumers of news, to really try to understand the source, where it's coming from, what the reputation of that source is. Very often we jump at news that confirms our worldview. Like, yes, they agree, they understand how I see the world, but that's not always accurate. And so it's still incumbent upon all of us to fact check, do a little fact checking of our own. What's the reputation of this organization? Is there a motive here in this information? It's kind of the journalism version of buyer beware.
Outstanding, Lester. Thank you so much. Our next student is Heather Stribling. Heather is studying integrated strategic communication on our Everett campus. The Murrow College has programs in Pullman, Vancouver, Washington, Everett, and also on WSU's global campus. Heather, are you there?
I am, thank you.
Great. Do you have a question for Lester?
I do. Hello, Mr. Holt. It's an honor to speak with you today.
Thank
I want to congratulate you on your well-deserved Lifetime Achievement Award. In last night's speech, You spoke of stories that sometimes never make it past the checking and the verifying stages. Can you walk us through your process in preparing for an interview?
For preparing for an interview, obviously, I read all the research, all the articles that have been done, previous interviews, but I always try to look at everything through the lens of the viewer. What does the viewer want to know? What's the takeaway? What's the most important thing that we want to hear about or hear from this person? And look at it that way. There's always a temptation in this business to try and impress each other, our peers around us, with the most wordy and knowledgeable question. And sometimes that's appropriate, but sometimes it's just the simple questions. Why are you doing it? What does this mean? The questions that people are asking at home. And I always try to let that be my guide as I get ready for an interview. Is this, the questions too wonky? Are they more aimed at showing how much I know or showing what the interviewee knows? So I try to go through all those processes each time.
That's fantastic. And what tempting shortcuts in the process do you recommend that we don't skip as journalists and communicators?
Well, I don't know if it's a shortcut, but I will tell you with interviews, one of the risks, and I still fall in this sometimes, is you're so busy thinking about the next question that you're not listening to the answer that you're getting sometimes. And sometimes that's where the news is made. We'll go in to an interview having a pretty good expectation, especially if it's a politician or some government leader. You have kind of an expectation of what they're going to say. But if you're not listening, you may miss the bombshell, that thing said at the end of the sentence, and you're so busy going on to your next question that you didn't seize it. And at that point, you're entering a conversation. It's not a list of questions. You want to pursue whatever it is that they said that may be newsmaking, and that's a real trick. You get better at it as you do this, but it still happens in the heat of the moment. When some interviews, when you're interviewing a very important person, maybe your time is very limited. They've given you, 10 minutes. And you're thinking ahead to, where you're going to go and can I get this question and get that question? But remember, your job is to try to elicit the most interesting, the answer that's going to push the story forward, that's going to illuminate in ways that we haven't seen before. And so that's something that I try to be aware of in each interview.
Terrific, Lester. Thank you so much. I believe we've been joined by Daisy Zavala. Daisy, are you there?
Yes, I am so sorry.
That's okay.
Technical difficulties.
No problem. We've all experienced those. Daisy is a multimedia journalism and political science senior here at Washington State. Daisy, when you're ready, go ahead and ask Lester your question.
Yeah, so I was wondering, you're a very established journalist now, but I was wondering what's been your biggest difficulty in establishing yourself as a journalist and feeling like, you're respected enough to bring the stories that you find necessary to tell?
Well, I've had a lot of, as I noted in my remarks last night, I've had a lot of good luck, had a lot of good mentors, a lot of people that gave me another chance when I made major errors along the way. I think the biggest challenge as a person of color occurred kind of in the early part of my career when an opportunity presented itself, and I felt that I was caught in a situation where I had to get people to focus on what I do as a reporter, not who I appear to be. I'm not saying that right, but the example I'm going to give you, I was hired for a job in Chicago at a TV station that had demoted a very popular African-American anchor. There was a protest. There was an ongoing boycott against that station. One of the demands was that they bring in a black anchor man. I was working here in New York as a reporter, and ultimately was offered that opportunity to come to Chicago, work at that station as an anchor. And I was very young at the time. I fell into a situation where some were looking at me as the guy who got the job because of the boycott. There were others who thought that he's our guy now, and he'll be more responsive to our stories. And there was it was a push and pull, and I had to just power through it just by trying to be the best journalist I could. And again, I was when I was 27 at the time. very young, and this was all very new to me, and I come into a somewhat volatile situation. But ultimately, I found my direction, my compass heading by just focusing on the work, on the stories, doing the best I possibly could, and ultimately, you find acceptance and greater acceptance among viewers. But it was a challenging period, I'll admit.
Well, thank you so much. That was very insightful.
Sure.
Daisy, do you have a follow-up question for Lester?
Yes. I was also wondering, how do you find that balance, within your work, but also, maintaining a healthy balance between your work and then your personal life, so you don't get, burnt out, or it just doesn't become too much for you?
That's a hard one, because sometimes even today it becomes a lot. You're getting pulled in a lot of directions. We work in a dynamic business. We have to respond to the news. We have to get ahead of the news. Sometimes we're in a very, very competitive environment, and you have to acknowledge that. At the same time, you do have a life. I'm better now than I used to be at turning it off. The ability to come home, to not be entirely plugged in. You can never be totally unplugged, given what we do. You're always getting the alerts on your phone. But it is a challenge. After some 40 years in this business, it's something I still struggle with, is trying to find that balance. Not only, obviously for your family, your loved ones, but for yourself. The stuff we cover sometimes is very heavy. And is very worrisome, and it can weigh on your mind, and you have to find a way to disengage, at the same time be engaged enough to do your job. We all find our own strategies. It's easier now than it used to be, because technology allows us to broadcast from anywhere. But I'll admit, it's been a long time since I've been on a vacation in which, in the back of my mind, wasn't a sense of when's the phone going to ring again? When's the next message? And I've got to hop on a plane and end the fun. So it's a challenge. I think everybody kind of has their own strategies, but it's important that you find them.
Super, Lester, thank you so much. Our final student joining us today is Cameron Limes. And Lester, I believe you've spoken to Cameron before, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, Cameron and I had a great little information session on the phone a month or so ago, and enjoyed talking to him, and anxious to hear his question.
Well, awesome. He has a question for you. Cameron's a broadcast news senior, graduating from Washington State this spring. Cameron, welcome. And what's your question for Lester?
Hello, Mr. Holt. Great to have you back. Lovely to talk to you again. Speaking on behalf of all of the journalism students in person and virtual, it's honestly such a pleasure to have you here. So my first question, my professor, Matthew Lovelace, he talks a lot about finding the human aspect of the story, and how that's the most important part of finding any sort of story. And I was curious, what is your opinion on it, and how do you find the human aspect to, anything?
Well, if there's one thing I've learned in this job, is the resilience of people. I have seen people and covered stories where people are facing just tragedy and circumstances that makes you wonder how they get up and put one foot in the other, and in front of the other, and carry on. So I think that's the most important story we tell, whether it's a disaster or a conflict zone, or whatever it is. It's about the story through the eyes of the people who are living it, who are experiencing it, how it will affect them. Now, sometimes that's a story that, COVID, of course, affects all of us, but we step into people's lives sometimes at their darkest moment. And here we come with a camera and a microphone, and we owe them dignity. And I would argue we owe them compassion as well. We have to do our job. But as I sort of hinted at last night, there's some things that aren't editorial. The idea to be empathetic, to be sympathetic, while still doing your job, it's not an editorial position. That's a human position. And I think it's extraordinarily important to hear the views of people. Surely we need to hear from, the decision makers and the government leaders, but regarding a particular story. But the real story is going to be in the people. And I would just remind again that how important it is to allow people to have their dignity. When you're standing there talking to someone who's on the porch of their destroyed house, You're talking to someone who has lost loved ones in a war. You have to deal with in a sensitive manner and be willing to take no. I can be persistent in trying to get an interview, but other times you have to know when to accept the no and walk away and allow people their dignity. Some things are more important than the story, in my view.
Wonderful. I appreciate that. Also, I like the tie. Guess we're matching tie. Moving on. And what is the go Cougs? Am I right? What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a starting journalist fresh into the field, fresh and new?
I think, first of all, is to really understand what journalism is, the history of journalism, understand there's a difference between the platform and the work. The platform, today is, well, we're over Zoom right now. It could be you watching regular TV or wherever. But the work of journalism doesn't change. The standards of journalism don't change. In fact, I would argue that the ability to instantly communicate, while that is certainly a benefit to what we do, it can also get us in trouble sometimes because the tendency to want to force a story, and we can never force a story. It's always be better to be last than first. But I really, really think it's important to understand, just as I was talking a moment ago about consumers, it's important for all of us to understand what our role is. As I noted in my remarks, I learned on the job. And so, you guys are much more prepared at your age than I certainly was. And I was very fortunate. But, to honor what we do is extremely, extremely important. And when we're out there reporting, we're holding up the light to journalism everywhere, I hope, and helping people understand what our role is.
Super, Cameron. Thank you so much. For the students, we'll get back to you in a few minutes with additional questions. Lester, we have a few minutes left, and so I thought I'd take the opportunity to ask you a question or two real quick. I'm curious, you've talked a lot about mentorship. We have a lot of students watching who are interested in what you have to say. What's the best career advice anyone ever gave to you?
I think it was that being a reporter is the highest calling of what we do. And that was from a dear, mentor, Jerry Nachman. He was a newspaper man and broadcaster here in New York. And he gave me my first, big news job in San Francisco at the radio station. And I remember he talked about it's the highest calling. And why that was a relevant conversation was because, like a lot of young journalists, young broadcasters, my head was turned in the direction of becoming the anchor, the anchor man. That's the ultimate goal, sitting on that big desk every night. But his point was, well, that's all fine and well. It's reporting. It's getting out, doing the story, doing the work is the highest calling in what we do. And that's why I always talk about, I do this broadcast every night, and I have, the editorial influence, and I've got the prestige and all the things that come with it. But when I look back at my career, the things that have been most gratifying and rewarding have been those things I have done in the field, telling stories. And that's the same today. This past year, because of COVID, I was not able to get out in the ways that we traditionally do on my broadcast. We like to go to the story on big stories, and we travel. We haven't been able to do that as much during the COVID pandemic. Now with vaccinations and some other things, you'll be seeing me out more. But that, I think, was the most important advice. And I think we should all think about that. And that's not to trash being the anchor. It's kind of fun being the anchor, to be honest with you. But at the end of the day, you want to be a reporter. I think that's the message.
Very good, very good. Thinking about COVID-19 and the challenges that it's left us with, I'm wondering, were there other obstacles you faced as a young reporter? You mentioned not finishing your college degree and kind of learning on the job and those kinds of things, which I found quite inspiring in many respects. Are there other challenges you face that you felt like kind of helped you develop your chops as a reporter and step into the job?
I think it was, certainly becoming a parent, helped me. I guess it made me more compassionate. My first years in the business, I was a very straight, cover the story, dispassionate, get the soundbite, get the the video, get back to the studio, and get it edited and put on the air. I don't know if it's becoming apparent or just the age of more wisdom and experience. I think is when I had a deeper appreciation for the impact that we have on people's lives. I mentioned, we enter their lives during difficult periods. We come and go. We show up in the scene, we do our story, and we come and go. And people are, are left sometimes with the impact of sharing their stories or being on TV, and we have to be mindful of that. I remember specifically covering the earthquake disaster in Haiti several years ago, and to date, I've never covered death on the scale that I saw in that story. And I remember, talking to families who just lost everything, and being kind of overwhelmed with this sense of guilt that I'll be here a few more days, and then I leave, and then I go back to New York, and I go back to other stories, and we move on. And those people's lives are forever impacted by what occurred. And I remember this sense of guilt. And fortunately, the network understood the gravity of the story, how it might affect people, and we were given access to some counseling. But I think that was kind of another moment. There's different moments along the way that kind of shape who you are. That was certainly one of them.
Wow, that's really interesting. It sounds like you really personalize some of those stories. It's interesting because when you watch the news, you tend to see journalists as really more sort of dispassionate providers of information. But I appreciate hearing about the sort of personal impact of stories on you. How do you think COVID-19 has affected you and will affect journalism more broadly moving forward?
Well, we've learned a lot. The fact we're doing this is a great example of, I can do interviews. I'm literally at the dining room table here. I can do interviews. I've been anchoring for a large part of the pandemic right here in my apartment. We've since taken some precautions, and I'm only here part-time now anchoring. I'll be in the studio tonight, but we're much more flexible. I mean, fortunately, we came from a good starting place, and that as a global network, we're used to moving very quickly to remote parts of the earth and getting on the air live and feeding our tapes. So, the technology was there. What blew me away was how quickly we were able to respond, and our technical crews were able to set up, here in my home, the homes of numerous members of the NBC on-air family, and so some of those things, we're going to keep with us. That rapid response, but I think we've lost a lot too, and that's that. I get back to that personal thing. I've interviewed a lot of people sitting here looking into this same computer, but it's not the same as sitting on their front porch with them or sitting in their living room and talking about whatever the issue is. And so, I'm very anxious to get back into that. We will, but let's face it, I think we've all learned a lot about our capacity to adapt very quickly, not just this business, but others, to do what we have to do in an efficient manner. Listen, if it was up to me, everybody would come back and we'd be all together, but obviously we're still struggling through this, and we have to kind of look at, what did we learn? What can we take with us?
Outstanding. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I know you have a hard stop at the bottom of the hour. Just want to thank you very much for joining us this morning, taking time out of your busy day, and express our appreciation again for your outstanding work as a journalist. And your career is a true reflection of the work of Edward R. Murrow, his legacy of professional excellence, ethics, and courage. And so congratulations to you. Thank you for joining us this morning, and have a great day. We'll watch you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you again for the terrific honor. I'm proud to be associated with the college, and I just can't thank you much.
You bet. Take care, and thank you, Lester.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Connolly, let's go ahead and let's talk to the students for a few minutes. We have a little bit more time here. For those watching today, we need to end a little early to give the technical crew here time to switch over, but we have a few minutes to talk to students. Can you bring Daisy Zavala up for me? Hey, Daisy, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, it's good to see you. Hey, I have a question for you. I know that you're an intern at the Seattle Times this semester. How's your internship going?
Um, I haven't really started with anything. We're trying to get everything together, all the students ready for June is when we're starting, but I'm very excited. Speaking to editors, there's a real big commitment to underrepresented communities, which is what I focus on, particularly immigrant and farm working communities. So I'm just excited to get started once the summer starts.
Outstanding. Do you feel prepared for your career as a journalist?
Yeah, I do. And a big part of that has been, Murrow College and the professors that have guided me. I'm first generation, and so I don't really have that kind of support outside of the university. For my parents and family members, obviously they're very supportive in other ways, but professionally, I'm kind of, at a loss there. But particularly like bench tours and Lisa have been, very instrumental for me to feel like I, belong in journalism, that I have the skills, to tell the stories the way that they need to be told.
That's outstanding. I'm a first generation student myself and college student, and I understand some of those challenges. It's really exciting to see you overcome and to succeed in this way. So congratulations, good luck. I'm looking forward to following your career. I think there's some exciting things ahead for you. Connolly, can you bring up Albert James for me? Great. Good morning, Albert. How are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I love the lapel pin. You're rocking the Cougar logo there. Hey, let me ask you a question. I know you're a junior this year. How has COVID affected your educational experience in the Murrow College and at Washington State University?
At the very beginning, it was a massive adjustment going 1 week, living on campus, and then the next week, living at home, somewhere I wasn't expecting to be in the middle of March. But as much as there was a struggle at the beginning, over time, as people adjusted and realized, we're going to be here a while, there were a lot of opportunities provided to me, not only by my family and friends in terms of support, but also by my professors being, an increased availability to address, the lack of connection we have in this virtual world.
Sometimes students have struggled a bit. Frankly, faculty have struggled a bit as well. It's not the same as being in a face-to-face environment. Do you feel like you've missed something in COVID-19, or maybe have you gained other things that you didn't expect to gain as a result of your experiences?
Well, of course I missed something. Of course, we aren't able to do face-to-face things like going out and actually talking to people to get stories or to get more information. But, and as Lester Holt alluded to, there are new opportunities to engage with people through a virtual connection, whether it's interviewing someone from the other side of the state through a Zoom call. And so while there may have been some lost opportunities, there certainly have been a lot of gained opportunities as well.
Outstanding. I have another question for you real quick. What do you hope to accomplish in your career? You're a broadcast news student. What are you hoping to accomplish?
Well, I hope to either go on one of two routes, either covering public affairs at the local level, and I'm from the west side of the state, so the Seattle level, or at the national level. I think that all levels of government, whether it's the president of the United States or the president of the local water district, makes decisions that impact all sorts of people. And being able to shine a light on that and inform people of what's going on is what I want to do.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Connolly, is Heather available? Good morning, Heather. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good, thank you. Everyone, if you're wondering, Heather's blazer is a navy blue, and not a purple. So just so we're clear, that's a technical difficulty that she's been working on but not able to fix yet. So Heather, I have a question for you. You're on our Everett campus, and you're studying integrated strategic communication. What attracted you to the Everett campus?
You know, actually, it was Professor Lucretia Quinn-Paxson, and she was visiting at the community college where I transferred from, Go Everett Community College, as well as Wazoo. And she came in and she gave a speech explaining her class that was on science, communicating science and technology. She showcased a student project where they took a scientific journal article and turned it into this 3-minute video that was accessible and understandable to kind of the regular Joe. And that was my aha moment. That was my, I need to go here. I'm interested in entering the educational media sector. And I love the idea of getting to explain complex communication and take that, give it to the people. Let's let everybody have that same opportunity to understand at least a piece of some of these more complex subjects.
You mentioned educational media. What career goals do you have in mind?
You know what? A dream job of mine would be working with PBS kids, you know, working behind the scenes, doing something. K-12 is really my love language. And I like the idea of seeing light bulb moments go off in individuals, and anything I can do to help encourage that lifelong love of learning is something I want to be a part of.
Super cool. Let me ask you a question about your experience on the Everett campus. What are you learning there that you think is going to help you in your career? Do you have a favorite class, a favorite instructor?
Oh, you know, I couldn't pick just one. It's collective. You know, we have Professors Atwood and Richardson and Corey Wilder, who's just put on this fantastic symposium, and Professor Quinn-Paxson, as I mentioned earlier. And each one of them brought a different element of communication and just a very accessibleness as well. And I've had the joy of working also with Professors Shores and Rhodes, over at Pullman through the COVID experience. That's one thing that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise, just geographically. So I've just gotten a lot of really great mentorship from professors and their backgrounds that they have that they can offer.
Well, that's outstanding. Thank you so much. I appreciate hearing that. All right, Connolly, can you bring up Cameron for me? Hey, Cameron, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I want everyone to know that Cameron and I did not discuss the ties this morning, so we.
No, that was not planned, but
That's right.
it's a great thing that happened.
It's
let's be
natural
honest.
for a cougar, but it was not planned. So Cameron, I know you're a broadcast news senior, and when you and I talked, you had some different career ideas than some of our students have. I know you've been involved with Cable 8 in terms of some of the acting and directing. What, beyond news, what kinds of things would you really like to see happen in your career?
Yeah, I am hoping to go more into the entertainment side of things. Dream job is to host the Tonight Show. Jimmy Fallon, I'm coming for you. He knows. I messaged him on LinkedIn. He's worried. I know he's worried. But yeah, it's honestly been a great experience here at Wazoo, and it's really helped prepare me to get out there into the writing and comedy field. Here on campus, everything's so accessible. Before COVID, I was actually the president of the stand-up comedy club here, which I founded in like a semester. I was like, all right, we're just going to start doing stand-up now. And Cable 8 has also made it super accessible to be creating shows so I can have my own late night talk show. So yeah, that's where I'm planning on going. Post-grad, I'm hoping to move to New York or LA. We'll see. It's expensive and I'm a college student, so we'll see how it goes, but that's what I'm shooting for.
Outstanding, outstanding. Let me ask you a question. As a broadcast news student, I don't recall Matt Lovelace being terribly funny, although if you follow him on Twitter, you see some funny things occasionally. Certainly Ben is pretty straight-laced. Do you feel like your career at Washington State as a journalism student has prepared you for the kinds of things you want to do in your future?
You know, I thought about that a lot when I was coming here because I thought, well, journalism and entertainment, they're far but close at the same time. There's a very fine line there. And it honestly has. Being a journalism student, you get comfortable in front of the camera. You have to get comfortable talking in front of whether it be 6 people or 100 people, you get used to it. And that's something that's huge in the entertainment field. You have to be comfortable talking to people. And people such as Marvin Marcello, he's really helped me point me in the right direction for alum, because I mean, Cougs help Cougs. We all know that. And the Murrow alum network is massive. And having that connection with Marvin and having him help me find all these wonderful opportunities and people has honestly set me on the right course to where I feel like I can actually, make it to SNL, The Tonight Show, etc. So the long story short, yes, I really do feel like it has prepared me, and I feel ready for post-grad.
Outstanding. Good, good. You had a personal connection that helped you to land a conversation with Lester Holt a little earlier this semester. I'm curious if you don't mind sharing me some advice that he gave you that you thought was really pertinent, or an idea he had, something that really stuck with you. Share with us a little bit about that conversation, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. It was a great conversation, random connection, but I somehow got his email and we set up a quick Zoom call, and we got to talk for 30 minutes, which was absolutely amazing. Just one-on-one. I'm sitting underneath my bed because it's the only place that looks somewhat professional in my tiny dorm room. But he offered me some advice because I was asking him about, we're both mixed. We both have mixed ethnicities, and coming into that world, we face challenges. And I was asking him, what do you do there? How do you face that? Have you ever faced those challenges, and what do you do to overcome it? And his advice was so straightforward. He said, just ignore it. What you have to do is prove that you're not who they see you as, but what you are. You're, like he mentioned earlier, you're a journalist first, the color of your skin doesn't matter at all when it comes to the news. What matters is that you can tell the truth and that you are honest all the time. And that's what's important. The color of your skin does not matter. And that stuck with me because I dealt with that a lot, especially in these kind of chaotic times. Hearing him say that as in, it doesn't matter what your color is or what ethnicity you are. What matters is that you are a straightforward journalist and that you tell the truth, and the rest will come with. But that is just on the back burner. Focus on your career first and everything else will follow.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. I really do. Good luck to you in your career, Cameron. And Connolly, were we going to bring Kirk in? Good morning, Kirk. How are you?
Good morning. Good, Bruce. Thank you.
Good, good. I just want to thank you for your support of Murrow College and for your leadership at Washington State. You've made a big difference for us, and you and Noel both actually, and very, very appreciative of the way you've leaned in and helped us out during during these difficult times. And I love that you're rocking the lapel pin. Sorry, they have my camera reversed, so you look good. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us this morning and for your support of Murrow College.
Well, thanks, Bruce, and thanks for the invitation to sort of participate a little bit and listen to Lester Holt. And I was reflecting this morning that one of the real benefits of being a university president is you get to meet these, exceptional men and women from all walks of life, whether they're elected officials, journalists, engineers, astronauts, you kind of name it. And if you would have gone back to my 18 or 19-year-old self and asked if I would have had an opportunity to meet and even get to know some of these folks, I never would have thought it's possible. So I just want to commend our students today. I know when I was that age, I'm not sure I could have asked an intelligible question to somebody of Lester Holt's stature.
Right.
And I just thought the questions were fantastic. I think our students did a great job asking them and doing a wonderful follow-up. And so anyway, always proud to be a Coug, proud to see our students. And thanks for, Bruce, the great job you do with holding up the legacy of Murrow. And this morning, Noel and I were visiting, and I asked her if she'd seen the movie Good Night and Good Luck, and she had not. So that's going to be on our weekend viewing list. I saw it on a plane flight about a year ago. I had seen it originally, hadn't seen it recently, and I just always encourage anybody that associated with WSU, it's worth an evening to sit down and understand at least a little bit from a historical and a fictional point of view about Edward R. Murrow and just the courageous stands that he took. So
Outstanding. You know, the amazing thing to me is that movie really is only part of his career. There's also the tremendous work he did from during World War II, and some of his amazing documentary work as well. So it's really terrific. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Truly appreciate it. And I see it's about time for us to wrap up. So that concludes our fireside chat. Appreciate your involvement in our Murrow Symposium. We have an exciting day of panels and events, so please check Attendify for information regarding all of our events. We have an exciting Hall of Achievement ceremony at noon today. We're going to be honoring Janie McCauley and Mark Wright, two journalists who are worthy of this honor, so we're excited about that. Also, we have a Murrow Minds Creative and Scholarly Expo beginning at 1 o'clock this afternoon. If you ever wonder what all the crazy professors do in Murrow College when they're not teaching, this will give you a chance to learn more. Excited about that. And we're going to conclude our day today with a virtual happy hour at the Coug. I think Corey may have some sort of symposium trivia game going or something like that. If not, Corey, time to get on it. And I hope you can join us for that. Everyone have a great day and go Cougs!